You won't believe this, but sometimes being understanding doesn't feel safe to an avoidant. It feels like pressure. Chapter 1. When you're too understanding and something quietly breaks in them. So, here's what I think, and this might mess with your head a little. You think being understanding makes an avoidant feel safe. They don't experience it that way. In their brain, your understanding doesn't feel like kindness. It feels like a future debt. Yeah, let that sink in. The setup, you're doing everything right. Let's start here. You're patient. You don't pressure. You listen. You give space. You say things like, I understand. Take your time. It's okay, I get it. From your side, this is love. Maturity. Emotional intelligence. You're thinking, if I show them I'm safe, they'll relax. Logical, right? Here's the problem. That logic doesn't land in an avoidant nervous system. What they hear instead, this is the first misfire. You say, I understand. They don't feel warmth. Their brain quietly translates it into, one day I'll have to give this back. You won't believe this, but kindness activates pressure for them. Not immediately. Not consciously. But subtly. Because understanding feels like emotional investment, unspoken expectation, a future moment where they'll be required to show up the same way, and that scares the hell out of them. Why care feels like a trap, not comfort. Here's something people rarely tell you. Avoidants often grew up in environments where care came with strings, love was conditional, being good meant emotional labor, support turned into obligation, so their nervous system learned something early. Care today equals responsibility tomorrow. That means when you're gentle and understanding, their body doesn't relax. It braces. Can you imagine that? Someone being kind to you, and your first reaction is defense? The internal question they don't say out loud. Once you're being consistently understanding, a quiet question forms inside them. How long before they need something back? And instead of enjoying your kindness, they start scanning for expectations, emotional hooks, hidden needs, future demands. You're offering safety. They're looking for escape routes. Why? Good partners trigger them the most. This part is uncomfortable, but important. Avoidants are often more uneasy with healthy partners than chaotic ones. Why? Because chaos feels familiar. Chaos doesn't require consistency. Chaos doesn't build emotional debt. But you? You're stable. You're patient. You're emotionally available. That creates a silent pressure. I should be better. I should want this more. I should show up. And should is poison to an avoidant nervous system. Kindness turns into guilt, not gratitude. Here's the shift you don't see happening. At first, they like you. Then they appreciate you. Then they start feeling guilty. Your understanding becomes a mirror. It reflects their emotional limits, their inconsistency, their avoidance, their inability to reciprocate. Instead of thinking, I'm lucky, they think, I'm failing. And guilt doesn't make them lean in. It makes them want to disappear. The moment they start pulling away, this is usually when you notice less effort, less initiation, emotional distance, subtle coldness, and you're confused. You think, but I've been so patient? Exactly. Patience didn't make them feel safe. It made them feel indebted. And debt is intolerable to someone who fears emotional responsibility. Let me be blunt for a second. If someone pulls away because you're understanding, the issue is not you. It means they associate care with pressure. They equate kindness with obligation. They don't feel capable of healthy reciprocity. That's not a communication issue. That's an attachment wound. A quick reality check for you. Ask yourself this honestly. Are you being understanding to avoid losing them? Are you hoping patience will make them choose you? Are you quietly carrying the emotional load alone? If yes, you're not being loving. You're self-abandoning. And avoidants don't respect self-abandonment. They unconsciously rely on it. All right. Let's keep moving, and I'm not going to soften this. Chapter 2. The guilt spiral. What starts eating at them when you're too good? So here's what I think most people completely misunderstand. They think guilt makes people try harder. With avoidance, guilt makes them withdraw. And once this guilt spiral starts, your kindness stops feeling safe to them. Let's walk through it slowly. Step 1. The quiet comparison begins. At some point, something shifts inside them. They start noticing. You show up consistently. You listen without attacking. You don't threaten or pressure. You give grace instead of ultimatums. And a thought creeps in. They're doing more than me. Not in a dramatic way. In a quiet, uncomfortable way. And that discomfort doesn't turn into motivation. It turns into self-protection. Step 2. Guilt hits their nervous system, not their morals. This is important. Avoidants don't experience guilt as, I should do better. They experience it as, I'm failing. And failure to them is dangerous. Because failure risks disappointment, conflict, emotional confrontation, being exposed as inadequate. So instead of rising to meet you, they start creating distance. Step 3. Why your kindness feels heavy. Here's the part that sounds cruel but isn't intentional. Your kindness becomes heavy because it highlights what they're not giving, what they're avoiding, what they don't know how to do. Every time you say, it's okay, I understand, their brain hears, you're getting away with this for now, and for now feels like a ticking clock. Step 4. The pressure of being seen as good. You're emotionally safe. That sounds like a compliment. But to an avoidant, being with a good partner creates pressure because you don't justify their distance. You don't give them a villain to blame. You don't create chaos they can hide in. You're a mirror. And they don't like what they see. Step 5. The story they tell themselves. Now the avoidant brain needs relief. So it creates a narrative. Something like, they're too nice. I feel smothered. This feels like pressure. I need space to think. Notice the pattern. You didn't change. You didn't demand more. You didn't become intense. But suddenly you're the problem. Not because you are, but because the guilt needs an external reason. Step 6. Why they don't talk about the guilt. You might wonder, why don't they just say they feel bad? Because admitting guilt would require emotional vulnerability, accountability, staying present in discomfort. Avoidants are trained to exit discomfort, not sit inside it. So they avoid the conversation entirely. Distance is easier than honesty. Step 7. How you start carrying their emotional weight. This is where it starts hurting you. You begin softening your needs, reassuring them constantly, over-explaining your intentions, taking responsibility for the distance. You think, if I make this easier, they'll stay? But here's the brutal truth. Making it easier doesn't make them lean in. It teaches them they don't have to. Step 8. The relief loop kicks in. Once they pull back, something happens. Their guilt quiets down. Their nervous system relaxes. And their brain goes, that's better. They don't connect relief to avoidance. They connect relief to distance from you. That's how the loop gets reinforced. Let me say this clearly. If someone pulls away because you treat them well, the problem is not compatibility. It's capacity. They don't lack feelings. They lack the ability to tolerate healthy relational pressure. And yes, healthy connection does involve pressure, responsibility, consistency, reciprocity. Hard question for you. Ask yourself honestly, are you staying kind so they don't leave? Or because this relationship actually gives back to you? Because kindness that costs you your needs isn't love. It's self-sacrifice disguised as patience. All right, this is the part where most people finally see the pattern and stop blaming themselves. Chapter 3. Why avoidants pull away from good partners. So, here's what I think people rarely say out loud. Avoidants don't leave because something is wrong. They leave because something is right and they can't handle it. Sounds backwards, right? It is. Let's break it down. Step 1. Chaos feels familiar, stability feels suspicious. Avoidants often come from emotional environments where love was inconsistent, care came with conditions, affection was unpredictable, calm never lasted. So their nervous system learned, calm equals temporary, stability equals suspicious. That means when a relationship feels steady and kind, their body doesn't relax. It waits for the other shoe to drop. Can you imagine that? Peace feels unsafe because it's unfamiliar. Step 2. Good partners don't give them an exit excuse. Here's the uncomfortable part. When you're emotionally mature, you don't start fights for no reason, threaten to leave, create chaos, play games. That leaves the avoidant with no external justification to pull away. So instead of thinking this relationship is unhealthy, they think something feels off. I need space. And space becomes the socially acceptable exit. Step 3. Kindness activates their fear of dependency. This one matters. When you're consistently kind, they start realizing, I could rely on this person, and reliance is terrifying for them. Dependency feels like losing independence, losing control, being emotionally exposed, being vulnerable to hurt. So before dependency forms, they back away, not because they don't value you, but because they don't trust what dependency leads to. Step 4. Why they feel safer with emotionally unavailable people. Here's the harsh truth. Avoidants often feel calmer with partners who don't expect much, are emotionally distant, are inconsistent, are unavailable. Why? Because those partners don't invite emotional responsibility. There's nothing to maintain, nothing to live up to, nothing to lose. That feels manageable? Healthy love doesn't. Step 5. Your understanding removes their distraction. When you're not reactive, not dramatic, not blaming, they can't focus on your behavior. They're forced to confront their own limitations. And that's uncomfortable. So instead of sitting with that discomfort, they exit the situation. Distance is their anesthesia. Step 6. Why being less understanding feels magnetic to them. This is where people get confused. When you pull back emotionally, stop explaining, become less available, reclaim your independence, they often lean in. Not because they suddenly healed, but because the pressure lifted. Less understanding doesn't feel like rejection to them. It feels like relief. That's why this dynamic is so dangerous. It rewards emotional withdrawal. Step 7. The trap you need to avoid. Here's the trap people fall into. They think, if being distant works, I'll stay distant. But now you're playing defense in a relationship that already lacks safety. You're not being authentic. You're regulating them. And that's not connection. That's management. Step 8. What this actually means for you. Let me be clear. If someone only feels comfortable when you ask for less, you care quietly, you don't expect consistency, they are not ready for a healthy relationship. And no amount of understanding can change that. Understanding doesn't heal avoidance. Awareness doesn't either. Only willing work does. A hard but necessary question. Ask yourself this. Am I being loved for who I am, or tolerated for how little I need? Because those are not the same thing. All right. Let's finish this. Clean, clear, and without lying to you. Chapter 4. When they finally feel it, and why you should stop being understanding. So here's what I think people wait for the most. They wait for the moment when the avoidant finally realizes, wow, I lost someone good. And yes, that moment can happen. But it usually comes after you've already paid the price. Let's break it down. Step 1. When avoidants actually start feeling the loss, avoidants don't fully feel loss while you're still emotionally available. They feel it when you stop explaining, you stop rescuing, you stop softening your needs, you stop staying emotionally open. Distance removes the pressure. Safety returns. Only then do feelings surface. Not because you mattered more suddenly, but because guilt and obligation are gone. That's when missing you becomes possible. Step 2. Why their realization doesn't equal change. This is where people get trapped. The avoidant reaches out. They say they've been thinking. They sound softer. But here's the truth. Missing you doesn't mean they can tolerate closeness. Regret doesn't mean they've built capacity. Awareness doesn't mean rewiring. As soon as emotional intimacy returns, the same fear reactivates. Same withdrawal, same distance, same confusion. Unless they've done real internal work, the pattern repeats. Step 3. Why being understanding kept you stuck. Let me say this plainly. Your understanding didn't make them safe. It made them comfortable avoiding responsibility. They learned, you won't push, you won't confront, you'll adapt, you'll carry the emotional weight. That's not partnership. That's accommodation. And accommodation slowly erases you. Step 4. What actually changes the dynamic? This part matters. Avoidants don't change when they're understood. They change when avoidance has consequences. That means you stop overgiving. You stop translating their behavior. You stop staying where your needs aren't met. Not as punishment. Not as manipulation. As self-respect. Distance becomes real, not performative. Step 5. Healthy boundaries are not cruel. You might worry, am I being cold? No, you're being clear. Healthy boundaries say, I care and I require reciprocity. If someone can't meet that, the relationship doesn't continue. That's not cruelty. That's alignment. Step 6. The question that ends the cycle. Here's the question that actually matters. Not, why are they like this? But, why am I staying understanding in a situation that costs me? Because once you stop betraying yourself, the dynamic collapses. And that's when clarity arrives for both of you. Step 7. Final reality check. Let me be very clear. Someone who pulls away because you're kind, patient, and emotionally available is not rejecting you. They're rejecting the responsibility of healthy love. And that's not something you can fix. Final words, listen carefully. You don't need to be less understanding. You need to stop offering understanding where there is no capacity to return it. Love doesn't require you to disappear. And anyone who only stays when you're smaller, quieter, less demanding, is not choosing you. They're choosing comfort. And you deserve more than that. That's the full picture.